Hey guys, welcome back to Watch Gauge. Just a few days ago, I had the great opportunity to sit down with the owner of Alsta Watches, Angus. As many of you know, I carry Alsta Watches, I sell them on Watch Gauge. I just started about a month ago. So far, I've received 2 shipments of the Nautoscaf Super Automatics, aka the Jaws watch. It's a reproduction of the watch that Richard Dreyfuss wore in the movie Jaws in his role as Matt Hooper. Limited to 1,975 pieces to commemorate 1975, the year which Jaws was released. So far, I've received 2 shipments of the Super Automatics. The first shipment sold out before I even received them, and then just the following week when I received another handful of them, they sold out within the first 4 or 5 hours. Well, I have just received my 3rd shipment of them, and more than half of that allocation is already sold. So needless to say, I'm super excited about this partnership. So I had a really fantastic conversation with Angus that I thought that you guys would enjoy. So let's cut over to that. So Angus, thank you so much for joining us. It's obviously been my pleasure having started doing business with you and with Alsta. And I figured it'd be great to take the opportunity to introduce you to the Watch Gauge community.
Great, and thanks very much for giving me the opportunity to come on and talk to your community.
Yeah, I have to tell everybody, you and I got on the Zoom call, it probably a half hour ago, but we just started rambling and talking about watches. And as I just mentioned off camera, you know, you and I could probably go on for hours about watches, the industry, the models, the future of the industry.
Like each time we talk, there's no stopping us. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so, and unfortunately for the viewers, a lot of that stuff was kind of inside information or things that are really between you and I in the future. And maybe one day we'll let some of that out of the bag.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. So I started with Alsta maybe a month or so ago.
Mm-hmm.
I received my first shipment. I believe all of the watches in my first shipment were sold before I received them. I received my second shipment and they sold within the first 4 or 5 hours I put them on the website. And currently, as we speak, I have another shipment coming to me.
Yeah.
This launch it's been okay.
Yeah, it has. It's worked out great so far. Delighted.
Yeah. So I'm really, really super excited. My clients are super excited, and everybody who's received their Nautoscaf already has raved about it. What's the secret, man? What would you say the secret is to what you're doing, and why is it so great for us?
I think the real secret is probably, it sounds a bit cliche to say it, but it was a brand and a project born out of passion for watches, and I think Alsta has a backstory, and it's all about passion and romance of back to the days when these watches were worn by people involved in adventure, you know, diving, surfing, skiing, all that kind of thing. So I guess it does nod back to a previous era when buying watches and wearing watches was a kind of romantic, adventurous thing to do. So I think that's why the watches have been successful, because there is a backstory there. Also the fact that it's born out of passion, and it's not just purely a business. It's a business, but also one with a huge amount of enjoyment and passion. Well, I keep saying passion, but that's what it's about.
I think you're absolutely right, and I think that's why each time you and I have spoken, we just literally start rambling, and time goes by like that. And it is because I'm so passionate about what I'm doing and watches and history, and then you are like my equal that way. You're as passionate as I am.
Yeah.
You're arguably far more knowledgeable, but it's truly a fun conversation. So I think you're absolutely right, and I really appreciate that. For the people watching who aren't really familiar with the history of the brand, could you give us the elevator pitch on, or a short version of the history?
I'll give you a real short version of Alsta from the beginning, and then the resurrected Alsta.
Well, that would have been my follow-up question for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Alsta started off in just after the Second World War, 1946, and it really built the business on dress watches, particularly for ladies. It was making ladies' dress watches and cocktail watches. It's hard to believe now, isn't it? But Alsta watches were all about the diamonds and really, really sophisticated-looking timepieces for mostly ladies. And then they started doing men's dress watches. And then in the 60s, in the mid 60s, they started bringing out sports watches, catching on to the trend of the time, and that's when they really hit upon something. They brought out the surf and ski. They did a limited edition yachtinggraph regatta watch as well. They did and then they brought the Nautiscaf out in 1970, 50 years ago.
Wow.
Which, I mean, it was even a cult brand in those days, not that well known. It was all manufactured in the US, in New York State actually. And
that I didn't know actually.
Yeah. The Alsta was based in New York, and they would buy in movements from Switzerland, and then decorate them or put branded, the movements. And then they hit hard times during the 70s. It's ironic that during the mid 70s was the period that really killed off Alsta. But that's the period when its best known watch really got its big moment in the spotlight in Jaws.
Yeah, on the silver screen.
And at the time when the Nautiscaf was being used in Jaws, that was the time when Alsta was really struggling and starting to feel the effects of the quartz crisis.
Yeah.
Finally stopped trading in the late 70s, sort of 78, 79, and then closed the doors completely in 82. And then I picked this up in 2014, I think it was. I've been a watch enthusiast and collector since the early noughties, since about 2002. I think I bought my first serious watch, and then became a collector. And in my collection, I had this obscure dive watch from the 70s called an Alsta Nautiscaf, and I just thought, I wonder if they're still around.
Yeah.
And I looked into it, discovered that they weren't still around, and I just thought, I'm going to do this. I always dreamt that one day I might start my own watch brand. I'd love to do it.
Right.
And I just went down the rabbit hole from there. And,
what did you do prior to the watch industry, if you don't mind me asking?
No. I started off I was in the investment management industry, and then I co-founded a technology business that was providing sort of software tools to the financial services sector, the investment management sector. So really technology, industry veteran, and just with a passion for watches.
And that's an interesting jump from technology to mechanical wristwatches, right?
Yeah, absolutely. My collecting was mostly vintage mostly vintage watches, mostly sort of automatic and manual wind dress watches and tool watches, which for somebody who made his living in the technology sector was ironic. Yeah. But that was just, again, it was the kind of romance of them that I loved.
Yeah, for sure. So when did you release the first current modern day Alsta?
The end of 2016.
Okay.
Into the beginning of 2017. So in 2014, I started the process of acquiring the brand. So I acquired those trademarks, and intellectual property for the brand was owned by in certain countries by companies or by a company, and so I set about acquiring that. So I acquired the intellectual property of the brand in some territories, and then went about just expanding that and registering the brand worldwide. So we ended up with, at the point of releasing the first watches, the Alsta brand was a worldwide thing. So we had the worldwide rights to the name before we got the first watch out of the way.
That's quite a different story from most micro brands nowadays, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I think because we had the option of starting our own brand and just, make a watch, get it on the market, and then start to register some of the valuable names and trademarks. But because we were bringing a brand back, it was quite important that we made sure we were doing things in the right order, and we were not, starting to manufacture under a name when someone would come forward and say, "Thanks very much, we own the name." So I think maybe because I come from a business background instead of a watch background, I kind of did it in that order.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating, and it's like I said, it's much different than what micro brands are doing nowadays. It's very common in the much more mainstream watch industry, right? You hear about a lot of brands that are kind of resurrected from brands of the past. And I think it's really fascinating because Alsta, to me, has so much more romance than these other brands that you might hear of that are coming back. I mean, albeit like aside from even the Jaws side of it, if I've looked back at a lot of the vintage Alstas, and they're very sport related. They're very, they're dive watches, they're chronographs, or as you mentioned, the yacht timer, the countdown timer.
Yeah.
I mean, and that does bring a vision of, people that are climbing mountains and diving deep in the sea, and things that bring like a romance to your heart. I've bought watches before and said, well, gee, I feel like I could do this. I might not, I feel like I could, fly a fighter plane because I'm wearing this cool pilot watch. Meanwhile, I'll never get a chance to really, but it's
that's what
great.
It's all about. That's what I mean when I talk about the romance of watches. It's all about that way it makes you feel when you've got the watch on. I mean, I probably can't do the things you just talked about either, but when I wear my watch, I feel like maybe I could.
Yeah, you walk in the room a little bigger feeling, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And the other thing that's really, really cool, I mean, obviously, the big thing with Alsta, that people are going to really understand is the Jaws, correlation. I mean, so Richard Dreyfuss wore the Nautiscaf Super Automatic, or what was the original of that, in Jaws. And what I find really cool, and I think most people can relate to this, is when you're wearing a watch that has some sort of like a really cool story like that, and then you get to talk to other watch people, whether it's in the watch forums or Facebook groups, or whether it's in person at these meets, or just, let's say I have a watch and I know a friend of mine is a watch person, but to be able to tell the story, oh yeah, this watch was the original watch worn in Jaws. It's a fantastic story.
You've got yours on today, I see.
I do. As a matter of fact, I've probably worn this almost every day since I've had it. I just got a new Form X Essence, which is absolutely stunning watch. I ended up sending that out for a review to a couple of my friends, my YouTube friends, and this has gotten the most wrist time in the last month by far.
Brilliant. And you're not a bracelet guy, you're a strap guy, aren't you?
I'm not. Yeah, so I don't own most of the watches I own personally have an NTH, your watch, even the Form X, and almost every watch I own, even my Omega Speedmaster. Almost every watch I own originally came on a bracelet. And I have every bracelet to every watch that I personally own is probably brand new in the box, still wrapped up. Because I get a watch, I take the bracelet off, and I throw a strap on. And simply the honest to goodness reason is I like bracelet watches, but the minute I put them on, I love it. And then about 3 hours later, I have to take the watch off because my wrist is uncomfortable. I don't know what it is. I think I've been wearing strap watches for so long that I'm not used to the weight, the watch moving around. I like the watch to be snug. I like to be lighter.
Yeah, good. I've been playing around with this button strap for a while now. channeling my Jason Heaton. I've got the surf and ski on a black leather button strap, and sort of 70s vibe.
Yeah, I have to tell you, I have a love-hate relationship with bun straps. I love seeing them on a watch, particularly like when other people are wearing them. But then when I put them on, again, because of that comfort and that size, I wear them and I can't get used to it. But I think they look fantastic, especially on that watch. That watch is really made for that strap.
Yeah, it does. It works. I've tried the Nautiscaf on it too, and it works. But I think the PVD one it definitely works on it.
Yeah, I think the PVD case certainly lends to the whole toughness of it.
It takes a bit of courage though to wear the bum strap these days, I think. But I'm having a go anyway.
Well, you know what? I would look at it if I walked past you on the street and I didn't know who you are. I would say that man has confidence. You know. So,
but that's an interesting topic, straps versus bracelets, because that's something that we bringing the first watch out. You can see that photo behind me is actually a prototype of the Nautiscaf 2, which we brought out. And I really wanted to bring it out on either a mesh bracelet or maybe a beads of rice.
Yeah,
I thought it'd be perfect for the time. And
the mesh is very hot these days, I feel.
Yeah, we brought it out on the mesh. Yeah. One or two people said, "Oh, I don't know. I would go for a strap if I were you. I don't know if maybe mesh bracelets. I don't know if it's a good idea." And being a watch enthusiast, I just said, "Well, I would like it on a mesh bracelet, so we're going to do it on a mesh bracelet. If it's a disaster, well, we'll bring a strap out." So actually, we did bring a strap as an upgrade, but it's sold on the mesh bracelet, which I think was a good decision. That went down well. And then the next two watches we did on straps, just to see what the how those went down.
Right. Yeah.
And then this one, the latest watch, we've done on both a Tropic dive strap and on we brought the original bracelet design back.
Yeah, it's funny because I have had a couple of people reach out to me who bought the watch originally on the Tropic and are just looking for the bracelet. So I know I have a couple of those en route on the way as well. Yeah, and the funny thing is about this whole little topic we just spoke about is that's one of the things I love so much about wristwatches and the community of people in wristwatches is that everybody has their preference, and it's interesting to hear why people prefer one thing over the other, and in some cases have debates about that stuff. And I think that's part of the fun of wristwatches is that they are so personal. And it just goes back to, talking about when you're wearing a watch and you're invoking that feeling, but also when you're talking to other people to be able to tell the story about your particular watch, whether it's the history of the watch, the way the watch is made, or whether it be even about the way somebody, like for instance, hey, I got this watch as a wedding gift or as a anniversary, or a big birthday, or I bought it for myself to celebrate a certain success. The story about watches and the feeling that it gives people is one of the things I love so much about it.
And us watch people can talk all day about why we're wearing a certain watch or why we're wearing a certain strap or bracelet, can't we?
Yeah, and it's funny because I have the other YouTube channel, the Watch With Us channel, and I recently started doing a series. It's called Talking Time, and where I simply interview people in Zoom. And it's funny because I have to set a timer on my phone because I know these videos can go an hour, hour and a half, or 2 hours long. And I know when somebody's looking to watch something on YouTube, they look at that time and I'm not going to watch that. It's way too long. But as I call myself a watch geek. As watch geeks, we could talk for hours. And then the other thing is too, is that you and I can be so completely different in every aspect of our life, but because, and I'm not saying you and I are, I'm just saying in general, a watch person and another watch person could be so drastically different people, yet have become very, very good friends and all because of watches. So that's, again,
fantastic, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, I'd say the majority of my very tight friends, aside from my core group of friends that I've had for 30 years plus, the majority of my friends I've made through the watch world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah. So really quickly, we've got the Nanoscaf Super Automatic, the AKA Jaws watch. You mentioned earlier that this being the 50th year, is there anything that we can look forward to, or is there anything that or no?
I hope so. I think so.
Okay.
I'll come back to you on that.
That sounds like a plan. I look forward to that.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, definitely something in the pipeline.
Right on, right on. So aside from everything we've talked about, is there anything that the watch gauge community and the folks who watch this should know? Is there anything you wanna say? Or
Apart from a thank you to everyone who has come back to be part of the Alsta story, it's a gamble bringing a brand back from the dead, because people can either say, I'll spend this money on this watch that no one's heard of, or I can buy a pre-owned, I can buy a pre-owned Omega or something for not much more money.
right.
So for people to have faith and take a gamble and come with us has been really appreciated, and it's enabled us to get to where we've got to in a small space of time. And of course the support from the retail partners, including you, John, has been fabulous.
Yeah.
You're a pleasure to work with, and I'm hoping
Thank you.
that it will continue.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping I can be a pleasure to work with in the future as well. Yeah, it's again, it all comes down to passion, my friend. And I've said this to you on a few occasions already. I'm super pleased that I found you and your brand, because it's from my perspective, it's difficult to find the brands that have everything that I look for. And there are a few out there, and for me, it's always a struggle, because I'm always looking to bring the best brands I can to the Watch Gauge website and to the community. And you've been amazing to work with. The brand is amazing. The story's amazing. And I know that we have a long, cool future together. We're going to do very well together.
And we don't make doing business too difficult, do we? We keep it quite simple.
I've got 3 children. And I always tell them, no matter what they're doing in life, make sure they're enjoying it, because it's so much easier to live, right? Like when I come to work in the morning, I can't get in here soon enough. And my wife has to call me and say, hey, dinner's going to be on the table. Are you coming home tonight? Because I enjoy what I do so much. And it makes it so much easier to do what we do. And then I think you and I are lucky that way, because I think that it translates through to the consumer, to the people buying the watch. If we love what we're doing so much, they end up loving what we can do for them. And
it's the old saying, isn't it? If you do something you love, you'll never have to work a day in your life. It's so true.
100%. 100%. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm sure you know it too. There are a lot of stresses that come along with owning your own business and doing what you do. But the stress is a much better stress. It's a good stress, because the stress is I don't know about you. I put the stress on myself just to make what I'm doing better for everybody else around me. Mm-hmm. But you're absolutely right. I don't feel like I feel guilty. I don't feel like I have a job. I feel like I get to do something fun, and I thank God for that, and I thank God, guys like yourself, as well as especially the people who are buying the watches. Right?
Let's not be guilty. Let's just keep doing good work and enjoying it.
Right on. Well, I do appreciate you taking time. There's quite a bit of time difference. It's probably close to or past your dinner time over there in the UK. Yeah,
4:30 in the afternoon. It is to you.
Oh, that's not too bad. So, but I definitely appreciate you taking time.
Thank you for inviting me on, John. It's brilliant to talk to you.
Absolutely, and I'm sure that we'll probably get to do this again very, very soon.
Hope so.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, you too, brother.
Hey, John. Bye.
So I hope you guys enjoyed that video. It was a fantastic conversation that I had with Angus. Needless to say, I am super excited about this partnership. Jump over to Watch Gauge. I'll leave a link in the description below so you can check out the Alsta Super Automatic Nanoscafs. In addition, in my last video that I just posted, so the one prior to this one, I introduced the new versions of the NTH Devilray. We're expecting them sometime in the midsummer, towards the end of July at this point, and I am taking reservations on them, so check that video out as well. Again, I'll leave a link to that video in the description, and as always, make sure you subscribe to this channel if you have not. Make sure you hit that bell icon below, which will alert you every time there is a video from Watch Gauge going live. Everybody take care of yourselves, and I will get back to you soon. Cheers.